This week, Pope Francis canonized 3 saints, the Queen of England visited the Vatican, and it's been 9 years since John Paul II died. Hello and welcome to Vatican Connections. This week is the 9th anniversary of the death of Pope John Paul II. The anniversary was kept very low-key in Rome since the canonization is just around the corner. Cardinal Leonardo Sandri was the prelate who had to announce the Pope's death to the people gathered at St. Peter's Square in 2005. He shared his memories with Vatican Radio this week. He said, in light of the upcoming canonization, he feels doubly moved when he remembers that moment, and he feels unworthy, far from being able to be an instrument at the service of the man he considers a great evangelizer. During his general audience, Pope Francis remembered John Paul II, saying he was an untiring preacher of the Word of God and did good even with his suffering. He said the people of God responded to him with love because of the magisterium that was his life. Canada has 2 new saints. As expected, Pope Francis signed decrees recognizing the sainthood of François de Laval and Marie de l'Incarnation, as well as José d'Anchieta. This happened on April 3rd. From now on, these 3 are considered saints, and this type of canonization is called an equivalent canonization. There is a Thanksgiving celebration planned in Quebec on May 18th during the annual Monte Jeunesse Youth Festival. A massive Thanksgiving for Saint José Anchieta will be celebrated in Rome on April 24th. Now, the canonization was originally supposed to happen April 2nd, according to Vatican Radio. However, it appears at the last moment there was an unexpected change in schedule, and it was postponed by 1 day. A potential fraud was thwarted at the Vatican. We learned this week that 2 men tried to get into the Vatican with a suitcase full of fake bonds in euros and dollars. The 2 men wanted to go to the Institute for Works of Religion, or the Vatican Bank, but Swiss guards and Vatican gendarmes were suspicious, mainly because nobody at the bank was expecting them. The 2 men were handed over to the Italian financial police, and charges have been laid against the 2 men by both Italian and Vatican authorities. The Vatican has signaled it is willing to help broker peace in Venezuela. Vatican spokesperson Father Federico Lombardi told media, "The Vatican and the Secretary of State are willing to help in any way possible." However, he said the situation in the country is unclear and there needs to be some careful study about what the best possible course of action might be. Although the Vatican has signaled its willingness to help, the Venezuelan government has not signaled their willingness to accept the offer. One Spanish news outlet reported that President Nicolás Maduro responded quite skeptically when he heard about the Vatican's offer to help. If the Vatican's help were to be accepted, it would not be the first time the Holy See helped mediate between 2 Latin American countries. In 1979, the Holy See mediated a border dispute between Chile and Argentina. And we are now less than 1 month away from the canonization of John Paul II and John the 23rd. The Vatican has released some much anticipated information about the ceremony and the events surrounding it. An estimated 3 million people are expected to come to Rome for the canonization. As a result, no tickets will be required to attend the Mass. Sections of the city will be closed to traffic and will be pedestrian only for several days before and after the canonizations. Giant video screens will also be set up at Piazza Navona, Piazza del Popolo, and along Via dei Fori Imperiali, the boulevard that runs along the Roman Forum to the Colosseum, so people can watch the ceremony there. There will also be a youth gathering on April 22nd at the Basilica of St. John Lateran, and on April 26th, the night before the canonizations, 11 churches in the center of Rome will be open all night for adoration, with priests available for confession. To get information out fast, a Twitter account and website have been set up. The official Twitter account for the canonizations is to Pope Saints. Tweets are in various languages. The official website for the canonization is topopesaints.org. Now, if you can't make it to Rome, Salt and Light will be broadcasting the ceremony, of course, and Vatican Television will be sending its signal to 500 movie theaters around the world in high-definition 3D. As for whether or not the Pope Emeritus will be present, Father Federico Lombardi said he has been invited, but has not decided yet if he will attend. Last Saturday, Pope Francis had a special audience with an Italian apostolate group for people who are deaf and blind. CNS has more on that meeting.
Ecco, due culture opposte, la cultura dell'incontro e la cultura dell'esclusione, la cultura del pregiudizio, perché si pregiudica, si esclude. La persona malata o disabile, proprio a partire dalla sua fragilità, dal suo limite, può diventare testimone dell'incontro. L'incontro con Gesù che apre alla vita e alla fede, e l'incontro con gli altri, con la comunità. In effetti, solo chi riconosce la propria fragilità, il proprio limite, può costruire relazioni fraterne e solidali nella Chiesa e nella società.
On Monday, Pope Francis met with the Salesians of Don Bosco, who just finished their general chapter and elected a new superior. He encouraged the order to stay close to youth and keep using St. John Bosco's preventative system. The so-called preventative system is based on kindness and establishing a friendship with young people in order to draw out the best in them. Pope Francis said this requires courage, maturity, and lots of prayer. Pope Francis also had a brief but special meeting with 3 young people from Belgium who are involved with the Youth Ministry Office in Flanders. They asked for and got a short interview with Pope Francis, which will be broadcast at a later date. On Tuesday, Pope Francis held a 2-hour-long meeting with the heads of all Vatican departments. The purpose of the meeting? To study the ways that the points of his apostolic exhortation Evangelii Gaudium can be integrated into the work life of Vatican officials and employees. It's not the first time he had such a meeting. He did the same thing back in the fall to get feedback on his curial reforms. Wednesday was the general audience. This time Pope Francis focused on the sacrament of marriage. Catholic News Service has more.
È vero che nella vita matrimoniale ci sono tante difficoltà, no? Che il lavoro, che i soldi non bastano, che i bambini hanno problemi, che tante difficoltà, e tante volte il marito o la moglie diventano un po' nervosi e litigano fra loro, o no? Litigano, Sempre è così, sempre si litiga nel matrimonio. Ma anche alcune volte volano i piatti, voi ridete, ma è la verità. Ma non dobbiamo diventare tristi per questo, la condizione umana è così. Ma il segreto è che l'amore è più forte del momento in cui si litiga. E per questo io consiglio agli sposi sempre non finire la giornata nella quale abbiate litigato senza fare la pace. Sempre. E per fare la pace non è necessario chiamare le Nazioni Unite che vengano alla casa a fare la pace. È sufficiente un piccolo gesto, una carezza, ma ciao, A domani. E domani si incomincia un'altra volta. E questa è la vita. Portarla avanti così. Portarla avanti col coraggio di voler viverla insieme. E questo è grande, è bello,
On Thursday, Pope Francis met Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip. They were in Italy at the invitation of the Italian President Giorgio Napolitano. It was the first time the Pope and the Queen met. Pope Francis also met with the bishops of Rwanda on their ad limina visit, and he was scheduled to visit the Roman parish of St. Gregory the Great on Sunday afternoon. There were a few nominations to report this week. The Diocese of Westminster in England has a new auxiliary. It is Father Nicholas Hudson. He's been the rector of the Venerable English College in Rome. He returned to England in 2013 and has been pastor at Sacred Heart Parish in Wimbledon. Pope Francis also confirmed the heads of 3 Vatican departments. Cardinal João Braz de Avis has been confirmed in his job as the head of the Congregation for Religious. Pope Francis also named some new members to that congregation. They include Cardinal George Pell, Cardinal Marc Ouellet, Archbishop Joseph Tobin of Indianapolis, and the Cardinals Norberto Rivera Carrera of Mexico, Luis Tagle of Manila, Bishop John Corriveau of Nelson, BC, and Bishop Kieran O'Reilly of Killaloe, Ireland. Over at the Council for Promoting Interreligious Dialogue, Cardinal Jean-Louis Tauran was confirmed as head of that council, as well as Comboni Father Miguel Guixo, who serves as secretary. And at the Pontifical Council for Culture, Cardinal Gianfranco Ravasi was confirmed as president, and all of the council members were confirmed for their 5-year terms.
Fratelli e sorelle, alle 21:37 il nostro amatissimo Santo Padre Giovanni Paolo II è tornato alla casa del Padre.
Beati voi, quando vi insulteranno, vi perseguiteranno e mentendo diranno ogni sorta di male contro di voi a causa mia. Rallegratevi ed esultate, perché grande è la vostra ricompensa nei cieli.
Il Santo Padre, segnato dalla sofferenza, si è affacciato ancora una volta alla finestra del Palazzo Apostolico ed un'ultima volta ha dato la benedizione Urbi et Orbi. Possiamo essere sicuri che il nostro amato Papa sta adesso alla finestra della casa del Padre, ci vede e ci benedice.
This week we asked you, where were you 9 years ago when you learned that John Paul II had returned to the Father's house? Victoria wrote to us and said she was at home watching CNN and crying. She also said, I miss and love Blessed JP2. Julie said, I had just returned home from a First Communion prep morning retreat. I cried. I felt as if my own grandfather had died. For many of us, it's hard to believe it has been 9 years. I was a student in Rome and had been at St. Peter's that evening. I was returning home when the announcement was made, and I missed the sound of the church bells ringing to signal his passing. Needless to say, there was an unhappy surprise waiting for me when I got home. Thank you all for sharing your memories of that day with us. Vatican Connections is interactive. We answer your questions and explain things you want to know. You can reach us on Twitter at VatiConnections or by email at info@saltandlighttv.org. We'll try our best to answer your questions during this part of our show. And that's it for Vatican Connections. Join us next week for our final program before Holy Week and Easter. From everyone here, thanks for watching and see you next time.